Hello dear learners, my name is Muna Jones. Today we are discussing decision making. Decision making is choosing between alternatives to achieve a goal, Basavan Thapa, 2009. It is a complex, cognitive process which often involves choosing a particular course of action. It is systematic and focuses on analyzing a difficult situation and problem. According to Stoner, 2008, decision making is a process of identifying and selecting a course of action to solve a specific problem. Decision-making process. The decision-making process requires that there is right information available to the right people at the right time. This process largely depends on the situation at hand and can sometimes be extremely short and immediate, while in other situations, it can take weeks or even months. Decision-making walks hand in hand with problem-solving because the former is needed if the latter is to be effective. Types of decision-making. There are generally two types of decisions that managers make, which are either programmed or non-programmed decisions. Programmed decisions. These are decisions that are made to the extent that they are repetitive and routine, in that some of them do not need to be investigated afresh every time they occur, as they may have definite methods for obtaining solutions. These types of decisions are made using policies, standard operating procedures and rules. For example, any employee who absents him/herself from work for 10 working days without permission is liable for disciplinary action. Programmed decision-making enables the decision-maker to avoid the process of identifying and evaluating options and making new choices every time the decision is supposed to be made. Though this kind of decision-making may allow the decision-maker to devote time to other programs that need more important decisions, they have a disadvantage of limiting the flexibility of managers. Non-programmed decisions. This is an unstructured type of decision-making. Non-programmed decisions have never occurred before, they are complex, indescribable, and there is no established method for dealing with them. For example, non-programmed decisions made by lower management in an organization will include firing an employee or changing the workflow procedures in the section. Decisions such as these are complex to make and require the use of creative problem-solving. Smith et al., 2007. Decision-making styles. There are 4 decision-making styles. 1. Directive style. Decision-makers using directive style have low tolerance for ambiguity and are rational in their way of thinking. They are efficient and logical. Directive types make first decisions and focus on the short run. Their efficiency and speed in making decisions often result in their making decisions with minimal information and assessing full alternatives. 2. Analytical style. Decision-makers with analytical style have much greater tolerance for ambiguity than do directive types. They want more information before making a decision and consider more alternatives. Analytical decision-makers are characterized as careful decision-makers with the ability to adapt or cope with unique situations. 3. Conceptual style. Individuals with a conceptual style tend to be very broad in their outlook and look at many alternatives. They focus on the long run and are very good at finding creative solutions to problems. 4. Behavioral style. Decision-makers with a behavioral style work with others. They are concerned about the achievements of those around them and are receptive to suggestions from others. They often use meetings to communicate, although they try to avoid conflict. Acceptance by others is important to this decision-making style. Common decision-making biases and errors managers exhibit. Managers are compelled to make decisions as part of their work in their endeavor to provide quality leadership to their subordinates. The common decision-making biases and errors managers make include the following. 1. Overconfidence bias. In this type of bias, decision-makers tend to know more than they do. They may hold unrealistic views of themselves and their performance. An example is where a manager thinks critically but cannot translate thoughts into actions. 2. Immediate gratification bias. The focus of this type of bias is on personal interest first. It describes decision-makers who tend to want immediate rewards and avoid immediate costs. For these individuals, decision choices that provide quick payoffs are more appealing than those in the future. For example, some managers would opt to go for a workshop instead of conducting a workplace performance assessment. 3. Selective perceptive bias. This is where decision-makers selectively organize and integrate events on their biased perceptions. They may end up mixing up the priorities. This means that a wrong perception of issues may lead to considering wrong decisions. This influences the information they pay attention to, the problems identified, and the alternatives they develop. 4. Confirmation bias. In confirmation bias, decision makers tend to rely on their past choices to come up with present decisions. They seek out information that reaffirms their past choices and discount information that contradicts past judgment. These people tend to accept at face value information that confirms their preconceived views and are critical and skeptical of information that challenges these views. 5. The availability bias. Decision makers have no ability to reflect on past experiences. They tend to remember events that are the most recent and vivid in their memory. It distorts their ability to recall events in an objective manner and results in distorted judgments and poor decision making. 6. Representative bias. Decision makers are more focused on making comparisons and contrasts as they face a responsibility to make a decision. They assess the likelihood of an event based on how closely it resembles other events or sets of events. An example is when there is too much absenteeism at work following a Christmas break. The manager will think employees will be absent from work again during Easter holidays. Managers exhibiting this bias draw comparisons and see identical situations which may not even exist at that particular time. Challenges managers face when making decisions. 1. Overfamiliarization with subordinates. Managers may face a challenge to make decisions if they become overfamiliar with subordinates. When it comes to making a decision on such individuals, the manager would find it difficult to decide. 2. Knowledge level of the managers and subordinates. The manager should be knowledgeable on the existing policies and guidelines of the institution which would guide in making decisions on everyday situations. Therefore, lack of knowledge would lead to ineffective decision-making. Subordinates also should be well acquainted with policies and guidelines of the institution so that they can be part of the decision-making process. 3. Organizational policies. Organizational policies, rules and guidelines make it hard for managers to exercise flexibility and leniency when making decisions as they have to follow laid-down rules. Certain organizational policies put managers in an awkward situation when making decisions, as they are required to religiously follow the laid-down policies, even when alternatives can be applied in arriving at a concrete decision. 4. Poor communication with subordinates. Poor communication between managers and subordinates poses a greater challenge when it comes to decision-making. Communication breakdown impacts negatively on effective decision-making. When managers are not in constant touch with subordinates and do not have frequent meetings with the subordinates, it makes it difficult to communicate when there is information to flow to the lower members of staff. The manager may find it difficult to make decisions. Therefore, frequent meetings with subordinates are important in order to enlighten members of staff on the happenings in the institution. Information should flow from management to the subordinates and vice versa. This makes it easy for subordinates to fully understand the decision made by management and makes them better able to accept those decisions without resistance. 5. Lack of resources. Inadequate resource may put the nurse manager in an awkward situation to make a decision because any failure on the part of the subordinate will be attributed to the manager's inability to provide the necessary materials. This puts the manager in an uncomfortable situation to make a decision whether to reproof the subordinate or not if their failure to perform a task is due to lack of resources. 6. Understanding what is important and to whom it is important. Effective decision requires the manager to understand the importance of the issue at hand and the people involved or affected by that issue. When managers are inconsistent in their decision, when it comes to understanding what is important, the manager may make a decision to please stakeholders and compromise the subordinates. How to make effective decisions. 1. Identify the decision to be made as well as the objectives or outcome you want to achieve. Pay close attention to decisions you make and how you make them. 2. Gather as many facts and as much information you can to assess your options. 3. Brainstorm and come up with several possible choices. Determine if the options are compatible with your values, interests and abilities. 4. Weigh the probabilities or possible outcomes. 5. Make a list of the pros and cons. Prioritize which considerations are very important to you and which are less so. 6. Solicit opinions and obtain feedback from those you trust or have had a similar situation to contend with. There may be some aspects you haven't thought about. 7. Make the decision and monitor your results. Make sure you obtain the desired outcome. 8. When you feel you haven't made a good decision, assess how you could have made a better decision. 9. Work at developing good decision-making skills. 10. Remember that the quality of your decisions is what ultimately will make you valuable to an organization. 11. Read books and different literature about decision-making. 12. Ask people who inspire you for advice on how they make good decisions. Once you make a decision, the universe conspires to make it happen. Ralph Waldo Emerson. Thanks for watching this video. Kindly share and click subscribe button for more educative content.